Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benjamin for the Roanoke Valley Chess Club, and today we are going to be looking at, some opening theory. And specifically, I wanted to start a series on what I'm going to be calling non-credible opening theory. And this is basically the idea that there's some openings or some opening ideas that can be played that really aren't in the book of how you should play the game. You know, basically a move that if your chess coach saw you play it, they'd be, why are you playing this? Like, I understand that there's a justification, but you shouldn't play chess this way. You shouldn't play the game like this. And so we're going to begin, and today we're going to be looking at the Ulvstead variation, which is a very fun variation. It's absolutely wild. Now I'm going to show some of the basic theory, but then I'm going to show two games in the exact same line. One a white win, one a black win, to kind of give you a feel of what goes on when either side wins. So we're going to start with just the variation. So it comes out of the Italian game, and it actually comes out of this fried liver idea of white trying to play knight g5 and go after f7, d5, e d5, and now typically theory goes, and I should also mention the other non-credible idea here of bishop c5, the Traxler, but the Traxler is just bad. At least the Ulvstead is actually sound. E takes d5, and then black can actually play knight b4 here as well, and it transposes, but knight to a5 is the main line. And after here, here, and the bishop goes probably to e2 is where I'd put it. We've got an interesting position where black has some dynamic possibilities, but this is all of these moves have really made sense, and this is how, you would be told how to play this game. Instead, when you go back here, the Ulvstead starts with b5. And we're going to transpose into something called like the Fritz or whatever, but I just call this whole thing the Ulvstead. Now, b5 is interesting because it hits the bishop, which is a more valuable piece than the knight. It definitely influences center, and it shows that black is here to fight. So, the correct move, by the way, is bishop to f1. And we'll see this move in both of the games that are going to be showcased today. But there's two mistakes from that you need to be aware of that white can play. The first is bishop takes b5, trying to win a pawn and win the piece, but queen d5, and that puts the end of that on there. And you could get a position similar to this, where black has a very strong attack lined up, and realistically, white is just underdeveloped. So black's got compensation for a pawn. The other alternative is taking the knight, which leads into this weird position. Again, black is down a pawn, but black has compensation in the form of central space and ready and active development. Whereas white has to spend some time in order to achieve that. Anyway, we're going to go here. We're not going to save that. And yeah, I figured this screen was going to go black, so just let me hop into the games and let's make sure. There we go. So, this first game, and we're going to be looking at this from the black side. We're going to fast forward to this position And both of these games have the same players as both white and black. So, anyway, bishop went back. This is the correct move. And you're about to see a very long, complicated theoretical line that extends from move 5, the end of move 5, for quite some time. Obviously, doesn't lose material because of that. King stays in the center. Defend the knight. Threaten the fork even though you're losing your own rook. Win the queen rather than the rook. There actually is a reason why you don't play King F1. And if I remember correctly, the reason why King F1's okay, apparently. What's the reason? Okay, I guess that's the entire reason. Okay. What about King E2? What's the problem with King E2? Probably the same, except now you're not even threatening to win the knight. So, yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. So, King D1 is correct. Bishop G4. Give the check first. Alright, so this is still a book position. And in the next game, you'll see I made an improvement over what I played in this game. This game, I made a mistake, Bishop D6, which I don't really understand why it's a mistake. I guess the real answer is you want this bishop actually on B4 to help you threaten tactics on D2. So that would be why, and it's not necessarily important to hold this knight over there because it's much more important to hinder development by just holding this pawn there. And it limits squares for the white king. So I guess that would be the justification. B3, there, rook E8, there. This is all reasonable so far. And this is for tactical reasons, because I'm going to play here and try to checkmate. At least that was the idea. But then I realized, oh, he can run. So I'm going to do this and try and get rid of that bishop. He did not oblige. He defended. So I went here with obvious tactics. Plays knight e3, and I probably should have considered taking that, but I could not work it out. So instead I just attack it. And yeah, this is kind of where the game kind of went bad for me. And I trade down into this piece down ending where, yes, I've got pawns, but the problem is I am just a piece down, and there's no good way to fight that. And that is game right there, because there's no way I can actually counter that. So I resigned at this point. So we're going to move to the next game. No, I don't want to save the analysis. Which I'm going to go a little bit more into depth on everything after this. So obviously, your knight's under attack. You want to move it, but you don't want to move to b4 because it's a little bit weird there. And yeah, okay, it does make sense. If you went to b4, you could go after this d5 pawn, but the knight's kind of misplaced. You'd rather have it for your bishop, and on d4, it's actually rather good because, you know, you can go to f5. You're supporting a bishop on f5. You're going after this pawn on c2. It makes sense. C3 is played to kick the knight before you can actually act on any of those plans. And when you realize that the knight doesn't have any good square to go to other than f5, and you don't really want to move it again, it makes it much easier to play a move like knight takes d5, giving up your knight, but you win it back immediately. And you're really hampering white's ability to develop because you don't really want to play d3 when you've got this. So it makes sense. White's going to give the check and force you to keep your king in the center. Queen f3, one of the main theoretical lines. The other in this position is castles, and I believe you play bishop here, or you might play that. And so you can probably play e takes d4 or rook b8. Both are playable. Both are absolutely playable. Queen f3 is the main line, or not the main line, but it's the line that my opponent prefers, because it hits the knight and forces me to do something about it, either move the knight or move the bishop, or in what I do is I take the pawn, allowing the queen to defend. White creates a double attack on the knight with the queen, as well as a fork of the knight and the rook. That's the idea there. Therefore, I'm going to go after my own fork right over here. Whereas white is, just going to take this. I get the check. We looked at why king f1 isn't the greatest. It just allows black to recapture with equal material. And the issue with king there, king e2, is we still have that same problem. And I'm trying to think. Oh, I guess we give the check first. And the problem is, it's very similar to the main lines. The only difference is white's only up a piece rather than the really wacky material combination that we get in the real game. King d1. Obviously, you're going to skewer the queen and king, or I guess pin the queen to the king. There we go. King takes the knight. Now, I prefer to give the check. You can absolutely win the queen first. That's absolutely a move, but I prefer giving the check first, then winning it, because that's a check. And now I can do this. So this is actually an improvement over what I played in the previous game. Because of the lack of space around white's king, white's king is very unsafe. So, develop, win a pawn. This also prepares putting something on e2, which is a very common theme in these types of positions. b3, bishop. By the way, this position is kind of the prep position. And I've analyzed it enough. Bishop b4 I don't have a problem with. Bishop b2, rook e8. This is actually where I would start analyzing this game. So, a 20-move theoretical variation, and we're sitting here, and this is where we're really starting to get into the nitty-gritty and think. And when you're talking about non-credible opening theory, this is the type of thing that you're going to get into, is every now and then you'll have a very forcing, very theoretical line where all of a sudden you're on move 20, 25, and this is really where you start analyzing the position because of just how forcing all the variations are. Now, rook c1 is a blunder, and I didn't respond correctly. And I'll give the audience a little bit of time to figure out how. To figure out just how crazy this line is. Because it's insane. Like, it really is crazy. And while I'm waiting, I'm going to go ahead and put this, because this is going to take a lot. Because it's going to take you a little bit to figure it out. Now, I played, in my opinion, a perfectly reasonable move, which carries out the themes of the position. And it's absolutely crazy. So, if you haven't figured it out, it's rook to e3 in this position. Now, obviously, you cannot take this because first we take there. Threatens the knight. And apparently, so after d takes, queen takes that. So it's not rook e1 because apparently white is checkmating there. Apparently it's bishop to e4. Or maybe not. But the point is, black's position is very good. White's position is on the verge of collapse. Right, so we go back to rook e3. Okay, well, what is the threat here? We can't play knight to e4. Which it looks like we could. The problem is rook takes e4. And there is no defense to this. Because we can probably... And, of course, engine like something ridiculous like a5. So, knight here, rook takes, and we'll just put bishop c3 up on the board. I love how my engine over here says rook g4 is even better. That's insane. But the point is this position is completely crushing. Okay, back to rook e3. You know, we get to... Those are really your reasonable attempts. Everything else just gets even worse than that. Instead, I played the very, in my opinion, logical f5. Which, okay, it's not as good as it should be, but it's not unreasonable. My opponent played a3, and I actually instantly played g5 because I wasn't really paying attention to what my opponent was doing. The funniest part is G5 is the best move. Like, that's the hilarious part, is G5 is absolutely the best move. But it is the logical continuation. And my opponent took, which is to be expected. I played G4, Bishop C6, Rook E2, which is all pretty logical. Knight E4, and this is actually where I just missed it. Now, admittedly, I was very confident about the outcome of the game at this point, so I didn't really care. Like, I had calculated a quick win, so I didn't really care. But I did miss a mate in 2. But that's something that during a game you really need to understand, is don't overthink it. If you see a win that you can calculate and you know it's a win, don't look for anything faster. Just play the calculated win that you figured out. So I just took that, played here, I played that. That makes sense. He took, which I didn't expect, and now I see the mate in 2, and I played it, you know, but it's not quite as pretty. But yeah, that kind of goes to show you what happens when this goes very wrong for white. Is white's pieces are all kind of bottled up and there's nowhere really for them to go. So, anyway, that is basically how the Ulvstead works. Black gets a very strong initiative and a very strong attacking position. White has material, but it's all insane. And specifically that variation with the queen sack. Anyway, I'm going to take it easy from here. I hope you all do the same. Have a very lovely day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.